Welcome back to Mets Daily. I'm your host, Jake Brown. Thank you so much for making yesterday with Sal Licata the most viewed show in the history of Mets Daily. Over 13,000 views in under a day. We appreciate your support, everyone. That's awesome. Subscribers were blowing up yesterday. Comments blowing up. We'll read some of your comments later in the show. So thank you so much to Sal for coming on, bringing the heat. Great show. And thank you all so much. A year of the show, and that was the most viewed show. So shout out to, maybe double the bald, more bald, the better. That seems to be the philosophy that works out. Smash that thumbs up on this video. Click that subscribe button. Click that share button and keep on commenting. And go follow your boy right now at Jake Brown Live. Freddy Peralta has spoken, and you absolutely love his aura. You love his energy. You love what he had to say in his opening press conference on Tuesday. And you can see just how likable of a guy he is. You can see why he was a great clubhouse presence in Milwaukee, why the Mets could very much use somebody like Freddy Peralta, and why he's going to help, continue to improve what this clubhouse needs. In a clubhouse that was definitely fractured. Carlos Mendoza talked about it. We'll get to him later in the show. But, I think he brought guys together, team dinners, having guys over in Milwaukee. Now he's going to bring that energy here. And I thought some of the noteworthy things were him talking about the players that, reached out to him that are excited about him coming there. He mentioned, FaceTime from Tyrone Taylor, who was teammate to them, Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, Francisco Alvarez, Sean Manaea, guys that all talked to him. And he said it made him feel really good. He said, I can't wait to be with you guys together and have fun together. He said he feels really good. Different market, different city, a lot more fans, a lot more people watching. I like the competition that we're going to face. I think those were all awesome things to hear. He talked about the contract extension. And listen, and this is what I was thinking too. And I'm like, everyone's like, extend him. He just got to face, he hasn't seen these guys face to face. He's had FaceTimes. He's talked to them on the phone. He's met them in passing when they play each other. But how is a guy going to extend with a team that he doesn't even know yet? So as much as everyone, we want to extend him now or the trade sucks, that's not how life works. You don't just go to a new employer and say, I want to be here 10 years. And then 2 weeks in, you figure out there's a mole or someone sucks or the coworkers are terrible. You start to learn more and more as you are somewhere. You're not going to commit your life to somewhere if you don't need to. Freddy Peralta is a wanted commodity. There's no reason 1 week into his Mets tenure he should sign an extension because the Mets have money to pay him. Other teams are going to offer him money too. So I think people got to realize the human element of this is Freddy Peralta is not committing here long term without, stepping on the field first. Maybe in spring training, he's like, I absolutely love it. My guess is, we're not going to see an extension anytime soon, but I'm sure the Mets are interested. And if Peralta likes it, I'm sure he'll be interested. But way too early to just say extend him now or the trade sucks. That's short-sighted, and it's not really, addressing the human element of the game. He also talked about coming to New York and, the Latin presidents. And this is something I've talked to you guys about, and people have said they got rid of Nemo and Alonso because of politics and all this. The Latin culture, it's special, man. There is something, there's a sense of pride when it comes to Puerto Rican, Dominican, no matter what country, there is a sense of pride. And that's why you've seen guys talk about what the WBC meant to them, and that sometimes it means more than the team that they played for. So I do think, yes, there has been somewhat of an emphasis of bringing in Latin players and guys that will gel together, because what they did have did not work. And it was a consistent, underperforming team outside of the magic of 2024. This team consistently underperformed. And I see no problem with it. Listen, New York is the home. It's a melting pot of everyone. If you live in New York, and I lived in New York I'll be 35 next Thursday. Mark it down if you want to send me money. So let's see, 7 years in Little Neck, 10 in Astoria, 5 at Hofstra. So that's 7 plus 10, 17 plus 5, 22 of my 35 years in New York. And, it's become more and more of a melting pot as you get older. It is the land of everyone. Everyone comes to New York because it's the greatest city in the world. And the Mets should want to represent that with different cultures. It's not just about having your skin color and the guy with your beliefs. It's about bringing together a lot of different cultures. And I think it was, noteworthy that Freddy Peralta mentioned about the Latina culture in New York and how much he likes that. So that's something to know. The other thing before we move on to the next topic that he noted was that he's been working out every day with Luis Severino. Remember that name? A key part on the field and off the field for the 2024 OMG Mets success. Severino's beloved. He was the guy always holding our guy Jay McCustom's OMG sign in 2024. He is a guy who really pitched well, who kind of just priced himself out from what the Mets wanted when it came to his contract, plus the luxury tax doubling in it. It was going to cost a lot. But now, I think it's a different position the Mets are in where, the A's, I think, could have interest in shedding that. And that's where I want to go to next year is, should the Mets and A's work out a deal for Luis Severino? He's owed $25 million in 2026. He has a player option for $22 million in 2027. Now, if he pitches great this year, you would think he opts out of that deal. So, when you talk about contracts that teams want to shed, and that is something that I received in a text, and I told you guys the other day that I got on Friday or Saturday, about, Mets looking for spare parts. I'm sure the A's are going to listen. It comes to Luis Severino, who did not pitch well in that ballpark. And obviously, it's a tough ballpark, a minor league stadium to pitch in. He did not pitch well there. I think the A's are all ears if they have an offer that intrigues them. And if the Mets are going to eat a majority of that $25 million, and they can afford to do that, I really do think it makes a lot of sense to bring Luis Severino back to Queens. I just think his personality, the fact him and Peralta work out together every day, you have built-in chemistry right there between those two guys. And I think his numbers last year are skewed because of pitching in that minor league ballpark where, you look at it, you're like, 4.54 ERA, it's not great. But you got to remember, he was much better on the road than he was at home. So I think Severino, I don't know what it would take. Maybe, I don't think it would take the Mets giving up a lot. I think it's in terms of the Mets eating the money is what it's going to come down to. Vientos is the name I'm throwing out there just because I think the Mets need to move on from Vientos. I've mentioned it on here a lot. I think there's a chance he stays and he's a part-time DH, but I worry about him in part-time because that didn't work out last year when he got playing time taken away. He clearly was just not the same player. So I'm not sure I love Vientos as a part-time guy. I think he's better served off being a DH on another team. But if you decide to keep Vientos, that's what he is. Can you do Vientos and a Will Watson, Vientos and a prospect for Severino? It's really about the cost. Are the Mets comfortable stomaching $25 million for a guy who's not a frontline starter? Severino is a middle of the pack, a 3 or a 4. I think chemistry clubhouse-wise, it's an absolute no-brainer for the Mets to bring Luis Severino back. But does David Stearns want to eat a contract? That is a lot. Now, if he's bad, there's a chance he opts in, and then you're on the hook for another $22 million next year. $22 million isn't insane considering Sean Manaea is making $25. But you got to think, do we want to be attached to Severino for a potential 2 years if he implodes in 2026 or if he gets hurt? Because either one of those, I'd be a little bit surprised if he opts out. I think he's taking the $22 million to the bank in 2027. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you want Luis Severino back in Queens? Carlos Mendoza also spoke this week on the show with Joel and John, and he talked about the Mets clubhouse and how it became a corporate clubhouse when they were losing. And listen, this is what we talked about, guys. This was not a unit that got along. So you have to understand that this is something we've addressed. He said it was a corporate clubhouse, and, he said guys didn't celebrate each other as much. And what I've told you about this team is there were some egomaniacs in that clubhouse. And, when you're losing after that first half where they were winning all the time and had the best record in baseball up until early June, then they imploded. It became corporate. Guys didn't celebrate each other. It wasn't like the OMG where they celebrated each other every day. It became, I'm going to celebrate myself on camera, take a selfie when I hit a home run and celebrate myself. It just became a very individualistic team. And, it's just lazy and short-sighted to be like, the pitching sucked. We know that. Anyone who watched the 2025 Mets, we know the pitchers didn't go deep enough. They were not good. But it was also a unit that just didn't care for each other. And it wasn't the next man up because it was, I'm the next man up. It's me, 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 me. Can't spell Mets without me was the 2025 team. And I think it's important that Mendoza address that. I also think it's important Mendoza fixes that. He is the head honcho, and he blamed himself. He said, it's on me. Well, listen, you are in a year where if you miss the playoffs this season, this is a team that should make the playoffs. You look at the Mets roster right now, this is a playoff team. If you disagree, I don't think you're paying attention. I'm not saying they're going to win the World Series, but this roster on paper, and that's all we can go off, should be a playoff team in 2026. If they don't, Mendoza's canned. You don't bring back Carlos Mendoza in 2027 if the team misses the playoffs in back-to-back years, spending nearly $400 million in New York City, fans selling out. I still expect good numbers now attendance-wise. I think that maybe they're a little down from last year because some fans are still butthurt that Pete and Nimmo and them are gone. But I do think if the Mets win, you're going to see people there. Like the first half of the year, the Mets were winning. Fans were showing up in numbers. They kept showing up. The team missed the playoffs by one game. So I do think if the Mets win and they're a winning team, fans will show up. And those people will eat their words who said they're never showing up again. But I do think it's on the manager here to get that right and have guys celebrate each other. Whether it's to come up with something when a guy gets a homer that you do together, whether it's the jacket like the Blue Jays had you put on, whether it's you roll the guy down the aisle. Now, things you don't want to get guys hurt. But whether it's a prop, there needs to be a band of brothers this year. And I think the Mets have done that where there's already tie units. That's why a Severino coming in would be big. But, Peralta knows Tyrone Taylor. Bo Bichette and Marcus Semien love each other. Jorge Polanco is raved about in the clubhouse. You have a lot of pieces that are going to mesh more together than last year's team. So I think you have a built-in clubhouse chemistry, but you got to make sure that's right when you're losing. When the tough gets going, the going gets tough, you got to be able to respond. Like if the Mets are on a 3-game losing streak, they got to bring each other together and say, let's get the hell out of this and get back to our winning ways. That didn't happen. When the Mets were losing last year, you can see it became corporate. Guys did not like each other, and the losing got worse. That team last year had a record-breaking, I believe, like 3 or more 8-game losing streaks. That can't happen. Those losing streaks derailed their season. So the Mets have to avoid long losing streaks and find a way to get out of a hole if they do get in one. And that comes down to really playing hard, playing for each other, caring about the next man next to you, and doing kind of team dinners, team things that Semien did, that Peralta did in Milwaukee. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see this new look clubhouse. I'm excited for this team. I still think there's a little bit more work to do, but in terms of major moves, reports are saying the Mets aren't going to make, any unless something unforeseen, they won't make major moves, but we'll see about that. All right, let's close the show with your questions from our episode with Sal Licata. Guys, keep hitting that subscribe. We're 8 away as I record this at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, January 28th from 3,800. Man, if we could get to 4,000 by my birthday next Thursday, it'd be a great birthday present. The Mets signed Alonso on my birthday last year. Can we get to 4,000 on my birthday this year? Please keep hitting subscribe, share. You guys are crushing it watching the show. We appreciate it. I'm thinking about also incorporating, we're working on it, a weekly kind of live show Q&A where we go through your comments. We go through super chats if you want to send in super chats. And we have a weekly, a lot of shows are doing it. I have not, but I do want to do this where we interact with you. When we drop this premiere at 11 a.m. every day, 11:30, I record it before. It isn't live. I make a point to, if I'm available, to go in and live chat with you guys. But this is a pre-recorded. So it premieres live, but it is not live. I'd love to do an actual live where we're just live watching the chat. Maybe it's after work so all of us could be in on it so we could all chat together. But I would like to make a point that we do that every week so we can engage with the community. Because like I said, I do want to do a Mets Daily Day. I do want to do a game with viewers. If we all want to gather as a group and go to a game together, I do want to make that happen. So please keep on commenting. Let me know if that's something of interest as well. If we get enough people have interest, I'll talk with Fan Arch, and we will make a weekly live kind of Q&A, fun chat together, pour up a drink, whatever you want to do. All right, we'll read a couple because we're going a little bit long today. We'll read a couple comments from yesterday. From Angel Rodriguez, Frito-Lay. Great name. Very insightful. Nice job. Appreciate it. B4 says, best of luck to Sal. I'm glad he's still in SNY. I feel like the fan just traded Lenny Dykstra for Juan Samuel. It's a unique comparison. Fit40 says, well, I hope you guys got to consume the Freddy Peralta presser today. Dude loves to smile, be positive, be an actual dude and brother for his teammates. Huge addition. Yeah, Fit. Yeah, obviously we just talked about that today. And yeah, the smile, the positivity, how he said he likes to bring joy to his teammates and make them smile. That's something that was so desperately needed. So I love that. From Marty Man Jr., I agree, Jake. The Mets should add Yandy in the offseason. I don't think your trade is the right one, though. Trading Peterson makes your rotation worse, period. They're not about to downgrade the rotation. It doesn't matter what they're getting back. Nothing currently available makes that worth it. Listen, it's not a bad point, Marty, but I would think the Rays are going to come asking for a starting pitcher. So maybe it's not Peterson. I threw out a few names. I said, what about Vientos and Wenninger? At some point, you're going to have to part with another one of these pitching prospects. You traded Sproat. I think they want to keep Tong. You're not trading Tong for Yandy Diaz. I'm never going to say that. But I think they're going to ask for a pitcher. Maybe it's Will Watson and Vientos. Maybe it's, I don't know, Jacob Reimer and Will Watson. Maybe it's 2 prospects instead. But I just think Vientos in Tampa would be huge for them. Vientos could be huge here. I know I've written him off a lot. Like, it could have just been a sophomore jinx. My issue with him is if he's not hitting, there is nothing else he's bringing you. He's slow. He doesn't play defense. He's a part-time DH. And if he's not hitting in that DH spot and hitting home runs, he's not helping you that much because he's not really like a singles hitter. He's not a guy with a high on-base percentage. So I just think Vientos would be served as a full-time player for a team that might not exactly be a championship contender like the Mets should be. Pete Nieto on that point says, I'm not giving up Wenninger for Diaz. I would if he was 4 years younger. Wenninger is going to be a beast. That's 100% fair. Listen, I understand not wanting to trade for 34-year-old Yandy Diaz. I completely get it. I think he's the final piece to make this offense one of the most dynamic offenses in baseball. I think they're one hitter away from doing that. I think they're a good lineup right now, but I do think they're one hitter away, and I just think he's the pure hitter that puts the ball in play that fits this lineup as a righty bat. But I totally get not wanting to trade Wenninger. That's why, listen, ideal for me is Vientos for Yandy straight up. I would just be surprised if the Rays are going to do a 1-for-1. John Mendez says adding Yandy will be the icing on the cake. I agree. Joe JF says, FYI, Benj got hurt in AAA. He got hit in the hand and played through it and struggled, and then came on later in the year when he got a little bit more healthy. It's a good point. Yes, he did get hurt last year. There have been a few injuries in the minors, but good point there from Joe that, yes, he might have been playing hurt, and playing hurt with a hand injury as a hitter is not easy. So I think it's a fresh slate for Benj at 22. I think the Mets' goal is Benj makes the opening day roster. I think he has to impress in spring. I don't think, that job is far from his. They have Beatty and they have Tyrone Taylor. I think they're going to go Beatty opening day and Benj by Memorial Day. But, if Benj tears it up in spring training and wins the job outright, I think the Mets would be perfectly fine if that happens. Brian Reese says, you honestly have a great dome for the ball look, Jake. You're lucky. You must have been a C-section baby. Jesus Christ. Yes, I don't think I was a C-section baby. I got to make sure of my mom. I'm not positive about that. But thank you. I agree. I think I have the shaping of a good bald head. Now, the upkeep's a lot. Like, I shaved 2 to 3 days ago and already have this. I hate this look when it's, like, growing. I need to figure out how to... this isn't the Gillette podcast, Gillette show, the Mets Daily Gillette. We should have them as a sponsor. I don't know how we haven't had that happen yet. Let's read a couple more before we wrap up the show for today. KRS says, the trope that Steve Cohen got his casino never made any sense to me. If the club doesn't do well, then both the Mets and the casino's revenues suffer. Now that Cohen got his casino, he has more impetus to invest in the Mets. Some of my fellow Mets fans had a bad offseason. Their own behavior is ridiculous. I agree. And listen, that was mentioned by a few insiders yesterday that fans' overreaction got very ridiculous because they thought the offseason was over in December. And then Stearns cooked them all up in 1 week. And just like that, you have a brand new philosophy on how the Mets offseason was, which was great. So I agree. Team has to do well for the casino. Now, people are going to show up to the casino anyway, but fans aren't going out to that area of Flushing. Listen, I'm from Queens. I know it well. I know it as well as anybody. I go to, Amore Pizza I've been going to since I came out the womb, which is, walking distance from Citi Fields, about a mile or two walk. This team has to do well for people to really show up, because when you're thinking about 40,000 fans leaving a game, if you get a couple of thousand of them in the casino, that is massive. Think about that. A couple of thousand fans from the stadium coming over. It's not the exact destination area if there's not baseball. Like, I think if the Mets win and fans miss going to the stadium in the wintertime, you might get fans be like, all right, I miss going to City. Let me go to the casino across the street, get a little bit of sprinkle of that area. If the Mets are a terrible team, you're not going to have people going to Flushing out there because there's not much around there. Obviously it's getting built up. There will be things around there, but there's not actually going to be this positive feeling of can't wait to go to Roosevelt Ave or Tom Seaver Way and go to the casino today. Like, if the Mets win, especially if they end up winning a championship, it's going to be like, oh, I love this area. We have a champion. We have a casino. We got a park. We have restaurants. Like, it'll be so much more joyful if the Mets are good, people to want to come back to that area even when the season's over. Let's close on that. Thank you for your comments. Keep on commenting. We'll be back tomorrow. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe, share. Go follow me right now. Go subscribe to my YouTube at Jake Brown Live. And we'll talk to you tomorrow on January 29th, right here on Mets Daily.